It's Monday, and you know what that means. Jersey First TV proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And certainly, I am New Jersey's premier award winning journalist, Top 50 Latino, as voted on by the Latino Spirit Online magazine, along with the United States Latino Affairs Initiative. And without a doubt, ladies and gentlemen, I will continue to be the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media because my level of honesty, now more than ever, is truly necessary in this era of journalistic deception. Of course, I'm everyone's favorite conservative. That's right, folks. It's Fernando, Uribe. Happy Monday to you all. Folks, isn't it great to just see light out at 6 o'clock Eastern time? And hopefully, listen, I know this weekend was brutal with the rain and the cold, but hopefully warmer days are ahead as we enter April next week. We'll be closing out the month of March here tonight, folks. And I want to thank you all for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so right now on Facebook Live via StreamYard, also on the Jersey First YouTube page, along with all of our social media platforms. Again, we always appreciate, you sharing. As I said, always on the show, sharing is caring. Of course, make sure you like us on Facebook. Of course, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And for all you YouTube subscribers, click the subscribe button. You'll be automatically notified of all the incredible content brought to you every single week by Jersey First TV. And of course, whether you listen on Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First and you'll be, hey, listen, take us with you anywhere at any time. Maybe you're walking the dog as hopefully the days are getting warmer. Maybe you're going for that early morning run or late afternoon run. Maybe you're going grocery shopping, taking the kids to soccer practice, whatever it is you're doing. Guess what? You have your smartphone on you, right? Well, take Jersey First TV with you anywhere at any time. And ladies and gentlemen, I cannot say enough how proud I am to be on the dream team of Garden State Media. That's right, folks. It's Jersey First TV. Brand new episodes of The Nader Narrative, hosted by the amazing Elizabeth Nader, premiere every Thursday on jerseyfirst.org/TV. And of course, brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap with AJ Malillo and Stephen Rombolo, premiere also on Thursdays and certainly on every single Monday night, whether 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. Again, check your local listings. You'll see brand new episodes of Real Talk right here with Jersey First TV. Folks, special program, we start the month of April next week. And folks, what a jam-packed month we're going to have. We're going to have Jersey City mayoral candidate Bill O'Day, followed by New Jersey gubernatorial candidate and the current mayor of Jersey City, Stephen Fulop, along with U.S. Representative in the 8th Congressional District, Rob Menendez. All that and much more, folks, in the month of April. Mark on your calendars. I know you definitely will. Folks, again, you definitely want to stick around for final thoughts because I'm going to have a lot to say. Speaking of the 8th Congressional District, I have a lot to say about some funny endorsements this weekend with the mayor of Hoboken, also a candidate for the 8th Congressional District in the House of Representatives. And folks, to be honest with you, endorsements he just got over the weekend don't move any needle. They're about as useful as a screen door in a submarine. More on that later, not just with these two clowns endorsing Ravi Bala over the weekend, but folks, I'm also going to have a lot to say about Jersey City Councilman James Solomon also kind of endorsing Ravi Bala. And, for a guy that's always preaching about integrity and credibility, why are you bestowing an endorsement of Ravi Bala? Kind of boggles the mind. But folks, more on all of that later. You definitely want to stick around for final thoughts. Get your popcorn ready and get ready to laugh because I'm going to have a lot to say during final thoughts. But folks, let's wrap up the month of March here. It is Women's History Month. And you know what? Why not talk to one of the more outstanding ladies in New Jersey, not just in politics, not really politics, folks. It's in government. And it gives me my esteemed pleasure tonight, folks, to introduce a woman who I had the pleasure of working with some many moons ago when I was in grad school, working at the Essex Division of the Office of the Public Defender on 31 Clinton Street, if I remember correctly. Yep, that was my old office, and I worked with a lot of great people there. And one of them happens to be the new public defender statewide, folks. She is Jennifer Sellitti, joining us here on Real Talk. Jennifer, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on here. And by the way, congratulations on your appointment last month. The governor obviously appointing you to I believe, we'll talk about the term itself, but certainly succeeding Joe Kokora, great guy who I had the privilege of interviewing some time ago here on this show. And again, congratulations to someone who I had the pleasure of interacting with many moons ago. I didn't have all these grades on me when I first met you. I was in grad school, and obviously some years later, the grades are still there, and you're still as awesome as ever. But folks, again, sharing is caring. Click that share button tonight as Jennifer Sellitti joins me here. Real Talk. Now, again, Jennifer, just for everyone at home, for anyone looking to seek the services of a public defender for you or a loved one, go to nj.gov/defender. Very easy. And you'll be obviously you'll find all the information necessary about how to seek a public defender should you need. Jennifer, really, again, being a student as I am, you look at the history of the public defender's office. Really, it's sort of centers around Gideon versus Wainwright. I remember that one year, studying constitutional law and how important that case was about legal representation. And regardless of what we think of people in our criminal justice system, again, there's, I'm always about due process. I'm always about, hey, whether it's right or left, whoever, everyone's entitled to due process. And I know that as much as the convictions in the court of public opinion happen, what matters is the court of law. And I think, again, when we think about due process, the first thing that comes to mind again is Gideon versus Wainwright and really what you and your office does.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Gideon versus Wainwright was, of course, the Supreme Court case that said that people accused of serious crimes are entitled to be represented by counsel. And in that case, really famously, Gideon went to trial the first time without a lawyer and was convicted. Hand wrote on some say it was toilet paper, some say it was a thin roll of prison issued paper, hand wrote a petition to the United States Supreme Court and said, I deserve to have the representation of counsel. And the Supreme Court agreed and sent that case back. He went to trial again with the services of an attorney who pointed out the flaws of the state's case and was later acquitted. And the rest, as they say, is history. And I think one of the really important things to remember about that case isn't just the case law that it gave us, that it birthed the Office of the Public Defender in New Jersey, which was the first statewide public defender system in the country, but also that it was a client who was at the center of that. It was a human being who was incarcerated for 5 years, who hand wrote this petition that changed the course of American history and certainly American legal history. And that is one of the things that I always like to point out about that decision. It was the client's role in securing that outcome that now gives every citizen of New Jersey and across the country these rights that we now have, should we need them.
Again, folks, simple, Sixth Amendment, right? Right to counsel, right? If I'm not mistaken. Okay. So I stayed awake during constitutional law so many, many moons ago, but certainly, and listen, again, and when we think about the importance of counsel, Jennifer, I had the privilege of working with the Office of the Public Defender some many years ago, obviously working in the Essex Division, and some great people there. I'm not sure who's still there. I'm sure I still have some fans of mine, maybe not so many fans anymore, but who knows? But I worked with a lot of great people. And I think one of the experiences that stood out for me was working at the Essex County Jail and helping other investigators really, and helping the attorneys during the intake part. Obviously, central judicial processing, court, CJP, for those of us that aren't in the system that understand this terminology. But I remember how demanding that was. Again, I used to dread Monday mornings. I'm like, oh God, I can only imagine what that, the docket looks like. But again, it was really eye-opening to me to work with the attorneys again, as we were doing, long before COVID ever existed, we were doing things remotely, right? We would have the defendants presented really in a room at the Essex County Jail, obviously at the courthouse as well. But I would see firsthand the sort of the overwhelming demands that were put on attorneys to, especially on a long weekend or any night of the week, dealing with individuals that, again, were incarcerated. And we're talking about like when I was working back there, we're talking about like 2004, 2009, where, again, cannabis was still illegal. Okay, we were locking up people unnecessarily for small amounts of cannabis when, let's be honest, harder drugs is what prompts people to commit crimes. I mean, again, I'm not a criminologist per se, but we all know this. And I just remember the workload that attorneys had when it came to cases like this. And fast forward to 2024, you would think that, well, legalizing marijuana in New Jersey, for example, has alleviated the caseloads, but is that the case?
It's not the case for a couple of reasons. One is that in New Jersey, we only represent people. The Office of the Public Defender only represents people on indictable cases. So on what we would call colloquially felony cases. In New Jersey, it's a little strange because we don't have misdemeanors in New Jersey. We have disorderly persons and felonies. So many of these routine marijuana offenses were disorderly persons offenses and therefore handled by lawyers in municipal courts. So even if you were to ever go to municipal court and get a public defender, that's not a person who's from our office. We only represent people in superior court.
Sure.
So we didn't see massive amounts of marijuana cases, although we did see plenty of cases with associated marijuana charges or maybe marijuana possessions with intent to distribute and that kind of thing. And then the other thing is, as we're looking at caseloads, we did have a period of time when I was practicing in Essex County. We had a relatively manageable caseload. I mean, any public defender will tell you your caseload is too high. I think if you have one case, you're going to think your caseload is too high because you always feel like you could be doing more.
Sure.
But coming out of COVID, where in New Jersey we had sort of this backlog of cases, our office is experiencing volumes of cases that we have not seen in the past. So higher numbers of cases than certainly when I was practicing. And that has caused some issues. In New Jersey, our caseloads, there was a recent report done with a bunch of organizations that came together to create best practice standards for public defender cases. And that organization rated New Jersey at 3.2 times the national average when it comes to best practices.
Wow.
So one of the things that I'm looking at is ways that we can alleviate some of the caseload burdens. There are some ways that we can do that by kind of moving some attorneys around. There are ways that we can do that by giving our attorneys better technology. And there are ways that we can do that by creating specialized units. For example, a forensic science unit that can help attorneys navigate really complex forensic science, and then also give attorneys technologies and tools that they can use, for example, to wade through body camera footage. Now in New Jersey, we were a huge proponent of having officers wear body cameras, and we love that legislation, but it also creates a lot more work because now every case has tons of body camera footage. So we're looking at ways to use technology to go through that footage faster and ways to use specialized units to help us meet some of these extra demands that are placed on our attorneys.
Folks, again, it's 6:11 here on the East Coast. If you're just joining us, click that share button because sharing is caring. My guest tonight is the distinguished public defender for the state of New Jersey. She's Jennifer Sellitti. Join us here on Real Talk. Jennifer, let me ask you this because when we talk about caseloads, what also comes to mind, again, as a state agency is funding and budgets. And it's budget season. And one of the things I like to make fun of our legislators of, and certainly the emperor, your boss, the governor, Phil Murphy. I like to take some funny moments here on the show. But, it's budget season. And like every other state agency, we keep hearing, well, there's a crunch for this, there's a crunch for that. I know you just got appointed. I don't want to talk numbers here. I don't think we shouldn't be talking dollars and cents or math here per se, but now in your capacity as the public defender, obviously you're going to be sitting through meetings where you'll be looking at budgets and, how challenging do you think this is going to be for you? Now, again, you worked as an attorney, right? In the Essex division, and obviously you work your way up, assistant public defender. Now you're the public defender. You're going to have to be privy to these conversations, maybe at times awkward ones, where you're going to have to look at, well, this is what the budget was for fiscal year 2024, and now we're talking about 2025. Is it a case of maybe having to bite your tongue at times when you're looking at numbers or meetings with members of the legislature or the governor's office, or is it just something that kind of just, it flows very organically?
So I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, this is my first budget season, and I was appointed right in the middle of budget season and actually took office as it was kind of late in the budget season. On February 1st was my official first day. So I'm navigating that process myself, but I can say that the governor's office is extremely committed to public defense and issues involving the criminal legal system, as well as the family legal system and the mental health system. And so for me, it's just a matter of sort of getting my arms around what the office needs, being a proponent of those things in the places that I need to be a proponent of them, and looking at our existing resources and say, how can we use the resources that we do have to make things make more sense and put clients at the center of everything that we're doing. So I think it's a little bit of everything, and it's just learning how to navigate that process. But the administration and all of the members of the legislature with whom I've spoken and with whom I've worked have made that process really easy and are really welcoming when it comes to ideas of how we can make improvements in our legal systems.
You have some big footsteps to fill, right? As they say, I'm just looking at my notes here. Obviously, Ivelisse Torres, going back to the 90s under Governor Whitman. I had the pleasure of working with Yvonne Smith-Seegers back when I was working in the public defender's office, and certainly Joe Kokora. When it comes, when you hear those names, though, Jennifer, what comes to mind about them?
So, I am always aware. Personally, I'm a little bit of a student of history, so I'm always aware of the shoulders on which I stand. And when I hear those names, I still get goosebumps thinking about the things that they have accomplished and wondering what, years from now, looking back, my legacy here will be. But I will say that it's always moving forward, right? We stand on the shoulders of the people who came before us, and we stand on the shoulders of all the things they've done. I spoke last week in Missouri. I addressed 600 lawyers at the Missouri Public Defender Conference. I gave the keynote address there. And one of the things I talked about was 1967, during the Newark Uprising, when the New Jersey Public Defender's Office was 12 days old when Newark erupted.
Sure.
And thinking about those brand new public defenders going into the streets, meeting with clients on their doorsteps, in their living rooms, on their stoops, while the city was literally burning and going through such chaos, and how they forged the blueprint for the office that we all still work in, and the seat in which I sit. Peter Murray, the very first public defender, kind of passed that legacy on to me. So I take it very seriously, and I'm always looking to what the people before me have done to see how I can borrow from that, improve upon it, and expand upon it in the future. And of course, I worked very closely with Joe Kokora. I was part of his team here. I was his training director before I took this position. And I feel very, very fortunate and blessed to have worked with him, learned from him, and be able to sort of continue to carry on his legacy and expand upon the work that he's done.
Listen, and Joe, I had the privilege of talking to Joe a few years back here. Actually, was one of my first guests when the show started during the pandemic. And, just being able to talk with him gave me a great perspective for sure. So, Joe, if you're out there, obviously, if you're watching, it was a privilege to work with you and talk with you, obviously, when we did. Jennifer, let me pick your brain a little bit here, and not to get too political with you, but when we think about public defenders, we think about, again, defense attorneys, right? Mm-hmm. It would seem that, and this is one of the things that I felt was really enriching to me when I worked there for 5 years in that agency. And, I worked with a lot of great investigators. I'm not going to mention them all because it's just too many to name. A lot of great assistant chiefs, a lot of great chiefs as well. Some colleagues I don't care for, but that's okay. But the point is that, one of the things I think that stands out about working, defense work is that there seems to be, again, I never run into too many conservatives in the workplace. Okay. I for the most part, it was again, I don't want to sort of go the route of, you just gotta be that sort of bleeding heart liberal to take a job like that. But that's not the case. I think that when you work in any government agency, regardless if it's a public defender's office, working for the attorney general's office, whatever the case, the Department of Law and Public Safety, I think that normally politics doesn't play a role at all, I would say, in the way that, casework is disseminated, the way you go about representing your clients, working with defendants. But it's almost like, well, you kind of know if you're working in the PD's office, there aren't a lot of Fernando Uribes walking around. Is that fair to say?
I don't know if I would characterize it that way. I mean, I think public defenders are a rare breed in that we are people who find the good. We are people who see the best in people at their worst moments. Yeah. And people that can find a bridge, can find a connection to anyone. And, as a public defender, I have represented people who at first I've looked at the police report and I said, oh my, how am I going to represent this person? And I can always find something I can use to connect to. So I think public defenders are very good at being accepting of all different kinds of ideas, being really good at sitting across the table from somebody and finding common ground. I think it does take a very special person to be able to represent people who have been accused of crimes, who have been accused of harming children, who have been accused of the things that our clients are accused of, or the things that our clients come to us for representation on. But as a political organization, I don't see it that way. I don't see it as like politics ever really getting involved in the day-to-day of what we do. Sure. It's always about the client. What can we do to put that client at the center and do whatever we can to make make good outcomes from that person and for public safety, really.
Well said there. Speaking of public safety, I know we talked about it off the air on Friday. We talked a little bit before the show tonight. Jennifer, I'm not sure what county you live in. I live in Hudson County, and I walk up a block. I look at Manhattan every day, and obviously, with whatever news app you follow or whatever you read, we can see what's going on in New York City. For someone that grew up watching TV, watching during the Giuliani years, the Dinking years, watching what New York City was, to what it became, to getting cleaned up, to now it sort of just almost looking like a cesspool again. It breaks my heart. But I think when we talk about public safety, it seems to be a big issue now, right? On a national level, it's an election year. There's no shortage of conversations about it. But here in New Jersey, I mean, again, I'm just sort of looking at some data here. And we talked about it off the air, but gun registration permits are on the rise in parts of Ocean County, Monmouth County, other parts of New Jersey. We're seeing, attempted carjackings in broad daylight. We're seeing home invasions. We're seeing car thefts in people's driveways. And listen, if there were smartphones and Twitter in the 80s during David Dinkins and Rudy Giuliani, who knows how we'd be looking at crime. But we have it now. And I think a lot of New Jerseyans are seeing what's going on. And again, I don't want to get too political here, but I don't have the highest opinion of Phil Murphy or Matt Platkin, because it just seems like the Supreme Court ruled on what, Americans' Second Amendment rights are. And I think that's what's driving people to go to their local municipal police department and fill out the necessary application for a permit. And it seems like those have skyrocketed because New Jerseyans don't feel safe, or there's an optic that, hey, crime is running rampant in New Jersey. You've looked at some data. Let's sort of separate fact from fiction here.
So I am always concerned about both perception and reality, right? Because we know that perception can drive reality and often drives responses to things. But the reality is that crime is down. So the reality is that violent crime in New Jersey is down, gun crime in New Jersey is down, property crime in New Jersey is down. And that's according to FBI data, according to the Attorney General dashboard site, and according to both national and local statistics reporting on crime. But perceptions of crime are at an all-time high. There was a recent study that was done by Gallup that said 92% of Republicans, 78% of independents, and 58% of Democrats believe that crime is on the rise. So forget your political affiliation, that we do see a little bit of a difference there. But even amongst Democrats, we're seeing that this perception that there's more crime is on the rise, even though last year, many polls and many organizations out there rank New Jersey among one of the safest places to live. So my concern, I'm always concerned about data, right? I believe that every decision we make when it comes to criminal justice policy or legal system policy should be made using data. My concern is that we're making decisions that are data informed and not decisions that are perception informed. But I am concerned about it, like I said, because if you feel unsafe and feel the need to get a gun permit, and I don't have any problem with people exercising their right to, if they comply under the law, to get a firearm. But if somebody is being driven to that because they believe crime is on the rise, I do think we have a responsibility to report accurate statistics about what is going on with crime. And if we are going to change our policies or change our laws, make those reactionary to what's actually happening as opposed to what people believe is happening, to kind of separate those things.
Oh, fair enough. Listen, great points there for sure. Again, I wanted to pick your brain about this because who better to ask than someone that looks at data annually about crime statistics. Mm-hmm. Another issue I know that you mentioned before, and again, it varies. Again, you'll have to educate me in the audience tonight, Jennifer, but two words that have become very polarizing because just look across the river, bail reform, right? It's become almost this taboo subject that across the river, bail reform, cash bail, people are outraged at the fact that, in some instances, again, I can't speak for New Jersey, but for example, let's say across the river, it seems like law enforcement's handcuffed, right? We arrest people, some bad perpetrators in many cases, and because of bail reform / cash bail, they're out on the street, relatively quickly. Help us understand why bail reform is undergoing this so much scrutiny. And let's be honest, a lot of vitriol, not just in an election year, but I think in any year for that matter.
Mm-hmm. So I think that there is this perception versus reality problem, and bail reform gets blamed for a lot of crime that is in no way in data connected to bail reform. I'll give you an example. You talked about, car thefts, right? We talked about cars getting stolen, which is a huge concern, and I get it, right? That is a big concern. Only 8% of car thefts in New Jersey are actually solved. So they actually find somebody and arrest them. But I hear people say, well, we have to stop bail reform because people are stealing cars. But if bail reform was going to be a solution to car theft, it would mean that we know that people who have been arrested, let go on pretrial release, are the ones that are stealing cars. And the data just doesn't bear that out. So there really isn't a connection between bail reform and car theft. We certainly have a car theft problem, right? And there are maybe ways that we can start to solve that. But bail reform is not the answer to the problem. So that's what I mean by the perception versus reality. And remember, across the river, they still have money bail. Across both rivers, right? They still have money bail. And one of the things that people often forget about bail reform, or pretrial justice reform, as we call it, is that before pretrial justice reform, we had to set a bail on people, a money bail. You could not consider by law whether somebody was dangerous in setting a bail. So now we have a system that allows the judge to consider, is this person dangerous and are they likely to appear? And what we know is that since pretrial justice reform, since bail reform has been in effect, we have more people coming to court than ever before. So it's working when it comes to getting people to come to court. And we know that only 1% of violent crime is committed by people on pretrial release, which means for every 100 people, 99 of those people are going out and committed and finishing the terms of their pretrial release with no problems whatsoever. So again, it's a let's not blame bail reform for things that are not bail reform's fault. Let's look at the data. What does it tell us? And if we need to fix bail reform because there's a data connected problem to it, then I'm all about it. Let's fix it. And that's part of what the Joint Committee on Criminal Justice Reform that got together, that included prosecutors, the Attorney General's office, police, public defenders, advocate groups, civil rights groups. Everybody came together with the judiciary and said, here's some recommendations. These will address the actual issues. Let's not have knee-jerk reactions that won't actually solve the problems that we're seeing. And make bail reform the scapegoat for everything.
All right, fair enough. Again, it's become such a polarizing term, right? Because again, whether it's an election year like this year, and we're seeing how, again, to the point you made about data along political lines, political parties, people are looking at public safety, people are looking at crime, people are looking at the way major cities. And listen, I understand that in a city there's going to be crime. It's not Paramus, for God's sakes, okay? It's not like, I don't know, Mount Holly. I'm trying to think of like quiet suburbs. I mean, it's cities, okay? To think that New Brunswick and Newark and Camden and the south side of Jersey City or Trenton are going to be just drama and crime free, that's not realistic. We get that. But I think that, many residents, to your point about perception and reality, they're seeing, again, police departments, whether or not they're funded adequately, whether or not there are enough cops on the street. I think that these are all issues, alongside, the topic of public safety that people get very emotional about. And I'm sure that, again, in your capacity as the public defender, you're seeing caseloads, as you mentioned before, that maybe aren't as high as they used to be, or maybe are comparable to where they were 5-10 years ago. But it's not just criminal cases, and I sort of want to work my way into the other services provided by the Office of the Public Defender. It's not just providing representation in criminal cases, right, in the Superior Court, but there are other divisions within the OPD that help families, help juveniles. If you can share with my audience a little bit more about why those divisions are just as important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So many people don't know that our agency also serves other populations of clients. So we represent parents in child welfare disputes, so parents who are accused of either abusing or neglecting their children. We represent the children in those proceedings as well, children who are involved in families where there has been an allegation of abuse or neglect. We also represent.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'll let you finish. Are we talking about like family court, like at the Superior Court level, or is it? Okay, cool. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. So these would be disputes where maybe the state is coming in and has removed a child from a home or has intervened in what's going on in the home. So we represent the parents and the children in those disputes. We also represent people who are being civilly committed, or where the state or a family member has moved to civilly commit them because of a mental health issue. We represent people who are on Megan's Law. We represent people who are have been held civilly committed after the term of end of their prison sentence for an accusation that they're a sexually violent predator. And we also represent youth in our juvenile justice system, so our youth court. So we do a whole bunch of different things. One of the things that I am really trying to do is, up until this point, we've really represented these folks kind of in silos. So if you come to our office and you have a child's, maybe your child has been removed from you, but you also have a criminal case, and maybe you have a substance use disorder, and maybe you're not a citizen, right? So you might come to us with a host of different issues. You've been kind of getting representation on those things in silos. One of the things I'm trying to do is move the agency to a more holistic approach, where if a client comes in the door, we can quickly assemble a team that meets that client's needs, whatever they may be, and kind of prioritize the needs and the representation, so that we're not just meeting one of our clients' needs in a vacuum, but we're meeting our clients' needs all together. And that's important not just for our clients and getting the services that they need and deserve, but I think it's very important for public safety that we start addressing people's needs right up front as we see our clients, and helping them get everything that they need so they're not coming back into the criminal legal systems that brought them to us.
Fair enough. Gemma, let me ask you this. It's 4 years later. It seems like a lifetime ago, but it really wasn't. And we know that COVID changed so much in our criminal justice system. I know that you were working, obviously, at the time with then public defender Joe Krikora, and certainly, we were home for many months. And, what was that backlog like? Maybe if you could share a story or two, again, not revealing any confidential information, but what was that like during those months during the summer of 2020, when we knew that there were still people incarcerated? The world shut down, the state shut down. Obviously, people weren't going to court. We were home. We were pretty much, again, working in academia myself, living on Zoom, living on StreamYards, having class, going to court. I mean, share with our audience a little bit about the challenges that you and other attorneys faced, again, in the public defender's office, where you couldn't go to jail. You couldn't be in the jail. You couldn't be in the courthouse. You had to pretty much arraign people at home. And you had to be, maybe in lack of a better word, in your pajamas, basically, almost, representing your clients on Zoom for hours on end. Share with us a little bit about how challenging that was during COVID.
So all of those things that you mentioned are challenging, but quite honestly, the biggest challenge was representing people who were dying or afraid that they were going to die. Right? That was the real challenge. When the world ended, as I say, right? When the world shut down and they said, you're now going to be working from home, we said, all right, that's fine. We'll make it work. We're public defenders. We're super adaptable. But we had clients, some with serious medical issues, some who were elderly, some with, co-occurring conditions, right? That we were terrified we're going to start dying as the disease spread. One of the things that I'm still proud of in New Jersey is the way everyone came together. The Attorney General's office, the governor's office, the Department of Correction, our office, the judiciary kind of came together and said, how can we do something so that only people who need to be in jail or prison during this time are here? And how can we work on getting people out who don't need to be here? And we were really successful, and other states still kind of looked to us as a leader during COVID. We were very successful in being able to get people who were at low risk of committing another offense out during those times and out of state prison a little bit after that, first with the county jail releases and then with the state prison releases, without negatively impacting public safety, right? So these folks got out, but they were not committing new offenses as many people were worried about. We were able to get people out, and I really believe save a lot of people's lives. And that is one of the things that has always been so great about working in New Jersey, is the way that stakeholders from all sides, all political backgrounds, from all kind of sides of the aisles and sides of looking at the way we all look at our criminal legal system,
Sure.
kind of coming together during a crisis and saying, we see a problem, how can we work together to fix it? And that literally saved people's lives. And our attorneys worked really hard. They always work really hard. They worked really hard during that time on those releases, on representing their clients, on advocating for their clients while they were held during COVID. And we're just now kind of climbing our way back to that and dealing with that backlog that was left behind, is particularly on a number of people who are out and their cases still haven't gotten resolved or gone to trial yet.
Actually, that was my next question. At what point was the backlog kind of finally evened out? Was it maybe sometime last year, or was it still even recently this year?
We still have it. I mean, the backlog from COVID is still there.
Okay.
We're working on trying cases and resolving cases as fast as we can. I mean, I think that there are some ways that we can ease that backlog a little bit, and some of that involves public defenders getting involved a little more in connecting our clients to services. But we're still feeling it. I think we're coming out of it, but we're still feeling it for sure.
Jennifer, let me ask you this, because obviously it's budget season, and regardless of the occupation in New Jersey, whether it's the DOE, the Department of Law and Public Safety, the OPD, it seems like, well, the easy solution is hire more teachers, right? If you're having a shortage of teachers in school districts, hey, you know what? Classes are getting overcrowded. Let's hire more teachers. Let's build more schools. Let's hire more cops. Let's hire more EMT workers. Is maybe a solution with the OPD itself just saying, well, let's hire more investigators. Let's hire more staff attorneys. Let's hire more parent liaisons. Let's hire more advocates. Is it just as simple as saying, well, now you're the public defender. I got to go to Trent and say, we need more money. We need to hire more attorneys and more investigators. Is that just sort of a magic wand that people think would help alleviate some of the burden that, let's say, the OPD has?
So, I mean, I'm really careful about saying, let's just hire more people. Let's just spend money. One of the things that I want to do is map that caseload study that I talked about earlier to our office, because one of the way that we have in the past, historically, I think since going back to 1967, assigned lawyers to cases is by saying we have this many cases and this many lawyers, and we kind of divide it up. But recognizing that if you work, like you were saying, if you're working in a city where there may be more first and second degree offenses, having 150 cases in Newark is not the same as having 150 cases in Mount Holly, right? It's just not. And there's not dissing any of the lawyers in either of those places, right? But we have to think about how many cases should an attorney working in Atlantic City have? How many cases should an attorney working in XYZ have? And try and be able to map it so that I can go back to the powers that be and say, we need this many attorneys, because maybe it's shifting some attorneys around. Maybe it is. I suspect we are going to need more attorneys because cases are just more complex these days. The forensic issues are far more complex than when I was trying regular old cases 15 years ago in Newark. Body cameras are so pervasive that it creates more work in cases. But I want to be really careful about doing this right and making sure that we get the formula right. But yeah, I suspect that we're going to need more lawyers to do these cases. And we haven't changed that formula in so long that I don't think that it's a sort of it would be an arbitrary ask. I think that we can prove that we need more lawyers and we need to move them around to certain places where there's a higher percentage of more serious crime and cases that are more complex. And, part of being new is kind of sitting down, going through the numbers and figuring all that out.
Jennifer, again, I had the pleasure of working with you many moons ago in the Essex division. From what I remember, that was probably one of the larger offices in the state. I mean, I would argue it was probably Hudson, Essex. Again, let me guess here: Hudson, Essex, maybe Middlesex. I'm not sure, or Union. I always used to think like those are the four biggest divisions, or at least that had the most staffing. Am I right, or did that change?
Well, don't forget Camden. Camden is a pretty big office too.
Yes, yes.
So we have Newark is our biggest office. Our Essex County region is the biggest. We have about 55 attorneys right now.
Okay.
Well, we don't have 55 attorneys right now. We have 55 attorneys when we're fully staffed in Essex County. And Camden is another large region, and the regions that you mentioned, right? The big urban centers are going to be the places where we have the most lawyers and the highest volume of our cases.
Okay. Jennifer, I'm a very competitive guy. Obviously, I work in media, and it's a cutthroat business. I'm a Taurus, so I'm already competitive to begin with. But
me too. I'm a Taurus.
What day?
I'm 17.
Are you serious? I'm May 17th as well.
Oh my gosh, we have the same birthday.
That's amazing. Oh my God, cool, good stuff, good stuff. So I'm just naturally competitive. But in your time, again, working as an attorney, when you worked in Essex, and obviously you're working your way up, but you're working against prosecutors, right? The Essex County Prosecutor's Office. I know some prosecutors there, good people, just like I know people in Hudson as well and in Bergen. But was there ever a moment in time or some cases, again, no specifics again, but was there ever a time that you just like, man, that prosecutor, he or she just got on your nerves? I mean, you just felt like, oh, they're just not necessarily playing dirty, but man, they're just getting under your skin. They're really just kind of make you super agitated. It's a hyper competitive business. Again, you're representing your client or clients, and ultimately, it's innocence or guilt. There's no middle ground. Again, it's either you're convicted or acquitted, right? And was there ever a time that you could recall where, I mean, you just were getting so maybe fed up with the prosecutor's office, you were just, it was just getting to you? Was there ever a moment like that for you?
Of course. I mean, I'm human, right? And like you said, it's a competitive business. There are very...
Is your mom or dad Cuban?
No, I'm human, not Cuban.
Oh, I was like, you're Cuban.
No.
You get angry all the time. I'm Cuban. So yeah. So continue.
No. I mean, I'm human, right? So of course there's going to be times, particularly, right, when people are coming after your client and you think it's not fair, right? I have always enjoyed really close relationships with my clients and good relationships. And I really do take that seriously. Like if you want to get to them, you're going through me. But what's important is no matter how heated it gets in a courtroom, is that at the end of the day, we can talk about it. At the end of the day, we can be professional. At the end of the day, of course, if there's any kind of serious misconduct or something like that happens, that we can address it. But people get heated in these situations, and it's okay. We're advocates, right? And we're adversaries in the courtroom, but then afterwards should be able to go back to being professionals and have good conversations about our cases. And I feel very lucky. I mean, there's probably some prosecutor out there going, hey, not me. But I feel very lucky that I think any prosecutor with whom I've worked would say that, you leave it all on the field and then you walk off the field and you shake hands, right? And that's how we get the broader things done, right? If we're constantly at each other's throats, we're never going to be able to come together and make the systemic reforms if we're constantly fighting and holding grudges with one another about individual cases.
I mean, it's business at the end of the day. I mean, it sounds kind of cliche, but it's business. It's something personal. You're trying to get your client acquitted. Your opponent's trying to get your client convicted. I mean, that's the business, right?
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, again, if you can sort of lay it all on the field, shake hands afterwards. You don't have to like each other, but if there's a healthy respect, I think that's not the worst thing. Yeah. Having said that, your appointment, again, you were just appointed last month. Congratulations on that. Is it a 3-year term or a 4-year term?
It's technically a 5-year term, but the way that it's structured, it's kind of a 4-year term for me because the last term went over a little bit before there was a reappointment. So it's like 4 years for me right now. Yeah.
Jennifer, I think a big question on my mind, obviously, you're the public defender, obviously the biggest defense attorney in the state, as they say, at a public level. Has there ever been a time, again, when you were working in the Essex division or working your way up the ladder, as they say. Again, I cannot congratulate you enough on your appointment. Has there ever been a time when you said, I don't know if I want to keep doing this? Maybe I want to seek political office. Maybe I want to run for the assembly or state senate. Again, I've worked in the criminal justice system. I'm an attorney. I'm an accomplished attorney. Maybe I want to work my way up even higher. Was there ever that thought process when you, again, were working in Essex, in the Essex region, and then working way up?
No. I mean, I love what I do. Before I became a public defender, I had a career in marketing and public relations, like a whole different career. Went to law school nights to be a public defender.
Okay.
And my mother will be the first one to tell you that it took me many, many years to even make the same amount of money that I was making before I went to law school. She's like, you did this backwards. Most people go to law school to advance their career. So I appreciate every day doing this work, and I love this job, and I love the opportunity that I have. I also have great respect for politicians and the work that they do. Like I said, I've talked to a number of folks on both sides of the aisle and have been met with nothing but a genuine interest in learning how we might be able to do things better, while again protecting public safety, but also improving the lives of our clients. So while I respect it and I appreciate this opportunity to get kind of a closer window into that world, I like what I'm doing just fine.
No, listen, fair enough. Jennifer, let me ask you this, because again, we saw in the last 4 years what the legalization of cannabis has done in New Jersey. I've had activists on, as a matter of fact, I had the president of the New Jersey Cannabis Business Association on a few weeks back. And I'm one of those people that, I've never smoked weed. I don't care to. It never interests me. But I was always one of those advocates, again, in grad school and then working in academia, that just felt like we're incarcerating people unnecessarily, not just in New Jersey, but nationally. Like the idea of again, working in academia, working with college kids and telling them listen, you got to be careful pre-2020, because it's you get caught with weed, you lose your financial aid, you lose your right to vote. You can have this on your record. Seeking employment is going to be difficult. And again, as someone who's worked in different facets, again, I worked in corrections, I worked in probation, in the judiciary, working also in the OPD. I mean, I saw firsthand what a drug conviction would do to people as young as 18. I mean, it ruined lives. Black, brown, white. I mean, it ruined people's lives. But now what we're seeing nationally, though, Jennifer, I really want to pick your brain about this, where there are cities, in Pacific Northwest and parts of the country that feel, well, if we're legalizing marijuana and this will reduce caseloads and it could reduce crime, we could focus more on, treatment. There are advocates out there that would say, hey, listen, I think if we legalize other drugs, it wouldn't be the worst thing. Again, we're alleviating the strain on law enforcement. They can focus on more serious offenders. If we provide sufficient treatment, listen, people, I mean, again, I'm someone that feels the war on drugs has been an abject failure. I mean, we're talking about billions of dollars going back to the 80s. Again, and I might date myself here, but I remember watching Nancy Reagan and Ronald Reagan on ABC on Sunday night saying that primetime special, Just Say No. And we grew up, I mean this generically, but we grew up on, going to elementary school, high school, the DARE programs. Hey, say no to drugs, don't do drugs. That's all we grew up on. And 40 something years later, I mean, the war on drugs has been a failure. Some criminal justice advocates, criminologists, academics would say, well, we've legalized marijuana. We're not sort of, cluttering up the criminal justice system with arrests. Maybe legalizing other drugs might be the right way to go. Again, as someone who's, an advocate like yourself, I mean, do you see when other parts of the country and other cities are saying, well, maybe legalize cocaine, heroin, that's not the worst thing. If we provide enough treatment, maybe we're not, we'll reduce jail populations, we'll reduce caseloads. It might be a good thing. When you hear that sort of rhetoric, what comes to mind, Jennifer?
So, I'll be honest with you. I haven't dug into this issue enough to say that I really have a position on legalizing other drugs. I mean, it's something that if there were proposals out there, I would certainly look at, but I don't think I've thought about it enough to say that I have a position on that one way or another. What I can say is what we know doesn't work. And what we know doesn't work is mandatory minimum sentences. What doesn't work is really lengthy sentences of incarceration. What doesn't work is violating people on the conditions of their parole because they've relapsed into drug use. Right now, there's 1,400 people serving prison sentences for technical parole violations. Things like not having housing, maybe relapsing on drug use, not committing new crimes, right? So things like that are not the answer either. I don't know if I'm ready to say that fully legalizing other drugs is the other answer. I do think what we need to be doing is investing resources in the services that allow people to conquer substance use disorder, to conquer a substance use disorder that is co-occurring with a mental health condition, right? Investing more money in the services and linking people to the services that they need, as opposed to locking people up, or maybe possibly even saying, we're not going to do this anymore. One of the things that I always say, or I'm trying to say, is that public defense is public safety. And we hear about police officers and prosecutors and courts. When we think of those folks, when we think of public safety, people often don't think of public defense, but we are on the front line, right? When somebody commits a crime, we're the first people that meet them. We're the people they're going to confide in. We're the people that they're going to tell what their real issues are, whether those are reflected in a police report or not. And I think if we start spending more of our resources, or given more resources, to connect people to the services that they need up front, within days of them getting arrested, while they're still in the crisis and need the help, that's what's going on in other places across the country. And that is proven effective in reducing prison sentences, moving more people from prison into probation where they can get the help they need, but also in keeping people from coming back. So if I had a message to all, particularly to your viewers, but to anybody who's out there, it's start thinking about public defense like public safety, and think about how we can use public defense and people on the front lines working with the people who are accused of caused harm and help them make their lives whole. Because if we can do that, that's how we're going to make the biggest dent in addiction, in mental health, in people coming in and out of prison like it's a revolving door. I don't think we need more police. I don't think we need more harsh and more punitive programs. I think what we need are to invest in those services right up front when people are in crisis. And that's going to make the biggest dent in keeping people from coming back into the family, into the criminal, into the mental health, into whatever legal system we're talking about.
Understood. Listen, all great points. Jim, before I let you go, obviously I mentioned what your predecessors have done and have accomplished. Again, your appointment just started last month. And, as you alluded to, obviously, in your capacity, you're looking at budgets, you're looking at personnel. What is something you really want to sink your teeth into during this 4-year appointment that, again, will help establish a legacy that will separate you from your predecessors? What is something you want to focus on that maybe has either gone overlooked or hasn't been focused enough in recent years that, now you're the top dog. Now you want to tackle and really take head on?
So I think it is that. I think it's the move to this idea of holistic defense, right? So this move to this idea that we are helping clients not just with their legal case, but in getting the services that they need so that they don't return to this system. And really restructuring and reforming the agency to be client-centered. And by that, I mean, when the client walks into the door, we're not just giving them a lawyer in criminal, a lawyer in family, calling in an immigration person to maybe look at the immigration consequences of a potential conviction. That what we are doing is assembling a team around the human being who walks through the door and having that team work together, work it out. This will help us move cases more quickly, will help us make sure we're getting at the client's needs, and will help us make sure we're achieving that client's stated goals. And again, like I said, it's public defense being public safety. Also, by doing that, we're making people whole, and a whole person who gets what they need is much, much more likely not to come back to our system. So we're not only doing that, but we're also looking on ways to get the data, because that's where we started, right? And talking about the importance of data. We are working with folks both internally and some external organizations to measure this transformation, so that hopefully a year from now, if you have me back and we come in and we sit down, I can say, here's the data that shows you that this is working and that it really is making the public safer.
And also, too, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, as someone who worked in the CJ system for 10 years, I mean, reducing recidivism is key. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, if we can reduce recidivism, that revolving door that seems to sort of, it's that stigma about the CJ system. And if we can reduce recidivism, again, I say it all the time. I'm someone that, while it can be very punitive about certain things, again, having worked in the system myself, I see the importance of mental health and treatment and everything else. Because again, if we can reduce people going back to prison, reduce that revolving door, again, reduce recidivism, okay? It goes a long way, to your point about public safety, quality of life, and that's a good thing, I would argue. And I think that that's something that, again, regardless of political affiliation, party, or whatever, that at the end of the day, that's really the goal. And as someone, again, who is very pro law enforcement, but again, having worked in the CJ system, again, if we can reduce recidivism, it's not just about punishment, it's about rehabilitation and reducing recidivism. That's a good thing. And again, I think that transcends politics and ideology, I think, beyond anything else we can think of. Jennifer, again, I can't say enough how proud I am of you. Congratulations again on your appointment. Again, I had the privilege of working with you many moons ago in the Essex office. Again, that was a great office. I mean, I loved going to lunch there. There was so much good stuff on Market and Broad. And again, just great people that I had the privilege of working with in Essex County. Not sure who's there anymore. I know one name that stood out for me at the time was the deputy PD, and his name was Michael Mariucci.
Mike Mariucci, yes.
Mike Mariucci was an amazing person to work for. I loved him. Just a lot of good people, a lot of chiefs, assistant chiefs, a lot of investigators. They were just great people. And I know you were one of them. And again, to see you ascend from working in a regional office to now the public defender, again, I couldn't, let me tell you, it couldn't happen to a better person as far as I'm concerned. So congratulations to you. Keep up the good work. And again, to a fellow Taurus, keep doing your thing. And I'll certainly want you, listen, you'll hear from me a lot sooner. I love this conversation. I think it was extremely illuminating and educational for my audience tonight. I definitely want to have you back on. I'll reach out to you later on in the summer, early fall, because I definitely want to have you back on and talk about really, I think, the intricacies about our criminal justice system that are not just black and white, but there's a lot of shades of gray within it. And again, congratulations to you. I'll give you the last word tonight.
No, thank you so much. And I think you said it, like you hit the nail on the head, right? That this is public defense has always seemed like an issue for people who are very progressive, right? Like I can't get behind public defense. Public defenders want to turn open the keys and let people run the street. And it couldn't be further from the truth. I think this is an issue we all need to get behind, because what we know is that historical punitive approaches to crime do not work. Right? Locking people up and throwing away the key doesn't work. Harsh mandatory minimums don't work. This idea of deterring people from committing crimes doesn't work. So we need to think about new and innovative, and I would argue public defender-led solutions to crime, because we are the people who work most closely with the people who are accused to have caused harm. And we're the people who know what they need and can help get them the services that they need to make their lives better. And that just doesn't make their lives better. It makes the lives of everybody in New Jersey better. So if I had one message for your audience, it's that get behind public defense. Keep your eyes on what we're doing, and think of public defenders as part of a public safety solution, not something that stands outside that circle.
Listen, great words, folks. She is the New Jersey public defender, newly appointed last month. Jennifer Sellitti joining us here tonight on Real Talk. Jennifer, in advance, I want to wish you a happy Easter. Stay safe out there. And I got to tell you, I think I'm kind of your favorite journalist now. I don't want to sort of just, put words in your mouth, but I think I might be getting up there. Is that fair to say, Counselor?
Well, now that you're putting me on the spot, and now that I know that we share a birthday, what can I say?
All right. Well, listen, hate to do that to my guests, but again, I appreciate you coming on. Great conversation, Jennifer. Seriously, congratulations to you. Happy Easter to you and your family. And we'll talk again soon here on Real Talk via Jersey First TV.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Folks, great conversation there with the public defender here in New Jersey, Jennifer Sellitti. Again, just as a context here, I had the privilege of working with her some many moons ago in the Essex County Regional Office, and again on 31 Clinton Street, I remember it, parking and walking up to the sixth floor. There, a lot of great people I work with. Some people I didn't really care for, but what does that matter? When you work with good people, it makes the workday a lot better. But again, great experiences there at the Office of the Public Defender in Newark. And quite frankly, folks, congratulations to her. It's a hell of a position, right? To now be at the top of the agency. And like I said, I mean, it's hard. Whether you're the Attorney General, whether you are the Superintendent of the State Police, whether you are the Public Defender, whether you are the Chief Probation Officer, right? And, name the county, whatever, within the judiciary, it's a tough job, folks. And for any of us that know about working in state government, we get into it because we want to, right? We get into it because we want to make a difference. We get into it because it's something that it's a calling for us, right? We don't get into criminal justice. We don't get into education. We don't get into social work, right? We don't even get into nonprofit work for the money, right? We don't get into it because we're going to be millionaires. No, we do it because it's a calling, and it's something that strikes a nerve for us. It's something that we're passionate about. Again, I remember my many, many moons ago in New Brunswick, graduating from Rutgers, and I knew that I wanted to get involved in the criminal justice system, and I was very proud of that. Working 10 years in different agencies, going to graduate school at Rutgers Newark, getting multiple graduate degrees, working, again, within higher education, working in media. I mean, again, folks, it's a calling, and you have to be you have to want it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not something that you just sit around and say, well, let me just get into government work or working in the criminal justice system because, it's a job and a pension and benefits. Yes, folks, that's true. But guess what? You have to want to like it. You have to want to go every day. You have to want to roll up your sleeves and get to work and work with people that maybe you don't want to work with. Right. I mean, I remember, again, working within, corrections and the judiciary and probation. Listen, as someone who, was a probation officer for many years, I worked with some, and again, supervising Megan's Law cases as long as I did, not some of the best people to be around. But again, you sort of put that aside, you get to work, you roll up your sleeves, as they say, and you do the best you can. Right? You work, again, in my time in the public defender's office. I remember working with a lot of great attorneys. I remember going to the Essex County Jail, right off the turnpike, right off of 15E. As soon as you get off that exit, right, you go on Doremus Avenue. For those of us that remember, right, if you know, as they say, right, and you work in there, again, you have to want to like it. You have to want to work in the criminal justice system, right? You have to want to work in education. To all my fellow educators out there, whether it's working in school districts or working in higher ed, you have to like it. You have to want it. Right? You don't do it for money per se. Again, it can become a lucrative career eventually with the years in, but you do it because you care. You do it because you like it. You do it because there's a passion for it. And again, folks, I'm not saying this to sort of blow up her spot, but again, you look at someone like Jennifer Sellitti, again, a very distinguished attorney. I had the privilege of working with her many moons ago and seeing her ascent upwards and seeing that trajectory, again, to now being the public defender. Folks, that's someone who's passionate, that's someone who's dedicated, and that's someone who wants to do it. And again, not all of us, listen, this isn't for everybody, right? Whether it's government work, whether it's, again, working in the criminal justice system, whether it's working in education, social work, whatever you want to call it, folks, at the end of the day, you have to want to do it. And if you want to do it, it'll be fulfilling. And again, my guest tonight is living proof that if you want it and you want to do it and you want to make a difference and you want to be invested, folks, it's the job for you. So again, congratulations to Jennifer Sellitti, fellow Taurus, again, born May 17th. Again, we Taurus, we always rocking. But in all seriousness, folks, when you see someone like that, you just have to, you got to applaud. Again, it's not for everybody, government work, but if you're invested in it, it's definitely worth doing. So, folks, again, you don't want to go anywhere. It's 7:00 here on the East Coast, and you know what time it is. It's time for final thoughts. And folks, I have to tell you, over the weekend, it's election season. Not forget about national. Right? It's election season in New Jersey. Obviously, all the congressional districts are up for grabs. Obviously, a U.S. Senate seat has been in the headlines for months now, right? thankfully. And I mean, again, I can't celebrate enough today hearing about First Lady Tammy Murphy suspending her campaign. Obviously, I think, folks, if you wanted to look at what nepotism looked like, that's a pretty good idea. But, on another level, we're seeing House races that are hotly contested. And here in Hudson County, where I live, it's the 8th Congressional District. And what bothers me about, listen, again, folks, you can endorse whatever you want. Okay. And I've gone on record saying that sometimes during this election cycle, we see a lot of clowns, unfortunately, right? We did to see a lot of clowns sort of making their way into the public arena, right? Talking out of both sides of their mouth, knowing full well they're running for office. But folks, what's really alarming is the lack of awareness. It's sort of like this disconnect from reality. And unfortunately, here in Hudson County, right, a lot of the towns within the 8th Congressional District, right, and also I believe Newark and Elizabeth are also in the 8th Congressional District. And again, let me just start by saying, I'm a big fan of Ron Menendez. Okay? Know him personally, know his dad personally. They've always been very cordial with me, despite the fact that we stand diametrically opposed in almost every philosophical policy position you can think of along political lines. Okay? But being Cuban, of course, you find that camaraderie, right? And I feel for Rob, I can even imagine the scorn that his father has been living with. And again, we talked about right at the beginning of this program about the whole role of the public defender's office, right? About the right to counsel, about the importance of due process. I've said it before in this program, folks. Okay. We're all entitled to due process. We don't have to like somebody. We don't have to like the 45th president, just like we don't like perhaps the senior United States senator. But what we have to like, or at least embrace, right? Because we're Americans, right? And for those of us that took constitutional law or read history books or took U.S. history, understand the importance of the Bill of Rights and understand about the Fifth Amendment, right? Right against self-incrimination. But more importantly, folks, the right to counsel. The right to a jury by your peers. All right? The right, again, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and more importantly, equal protection under the law, the due process that we're all entitled to as Americans, right? Whether you're the 45th president or whether you're a sitting United States senator. It's due process, folks. Okay? So I can't even imagine the stress that his son has been under. But one thing I can tell you about Ron Menendez is that he's a guy that's gone to Washington and he's got to work. He's rolled up his sleeves. He has gotten federal dollars back into the 8th Congressional District. Now, are there some policy positions that Ron Menendez takes that I'm not a fan of? Sure. And he knows that. I'm not lying. I'm not spilling tea here on the show, folks. Okay. There are some things that Ron Menendez and I do not agree with. But I can tell you wholeheartedly is that I respect him immensely because as a freshman United States representative, he's gone to Washington and he has brought back dollars back to the district. Okay? He's gotten to work. Now, people might say, oh, well, how did he get there? Did he, was he already on third base, right, in 2022 before that election? Listen, folks, you can have your opinions. Okay? And some people might say, yeah, he was on third base. Others will say, hey, listen, he got to work and whatever. But you know what's interesting, though? In the 2 years he's been in Congress, in the 2 years that Ron Menendez has been in the House of Representatives, what Rob has done is he's gotten to work. And he's earned the endorsements of different unions and different organizations, parents groups, whatever, because he's done the work. Okay? He's done the work to earn re-election. And of course, we all know that with his father's legal trouble, certainly people jumped on trying to succeed him in the United States. And of course, we saw that. We saw it over the weekend, right? It would seem that U.S. Representative in the 3rd Congressional District, one of Rob's peers, Andy Kim, seems to be the sure-in to become the next United States Senator after he wins the primary coming up on June 8th, and then subsequently coming up this November. Because, folks, let's be honest. The New Jersey GOP is going to defecate the bed, as they say. They're not going to run a good candidate, and they're not going to know what to do with themselves. So clearly that's a seat that will remain blue in a year where the presidency is on the line, All 435 House seats are up for grabs, and I believe up to 40 U.S. Senate seats are up for grabs. So, of course, with a one-seat majority in the U.S. Senate, obviously Democrats are very eager to make sure they can keep that one-seat majority, and certainly looking at a seat like New Jersey, that again has not elected a Republican since 1972, it's safe to say, folks, that seat will remain blue this November. But getting back to Rob Menendez, okay, here's a guy who's had to live with, again, the vitriol levied at his father, who, again, folks, you may not want to hear this, but I'm consistent on the show. See, one thing, folks, two things actually, that I premise on this show a lot is I'm intellectually honest, and I'm also philosophically consistent. Okay? If you're conservative like me and you want to make sure the 45th president's getting due process, cool. Then you have to also make sure that the senior United States Senator is also receiving due process. And he'll have his day in court in May, a month before the primary. Now, whether or not that trial ends sometime during the summer, maybe he'll want to run as an independent, who knows? But again, folks, we either believe in due process or we don't. We don't get to pick and choose when we like the Bill of Rights, folks. I say this all the time to my colleagues in journalism. You don't get to pick and choose when, the Bill of Rights is applicable. No, either you believe in that sacred part of the document or you don't. All right? So we'll see what happens to Rob's father. But getting back to Rob, he has a primary challenger. And one of the things that bothers me about his primary challenger, and folks, I think you know full well, I don't have any high opinion of Robin Derbala, the mayor of Hoboken, and again, a candidate as a Democrat for the 8th Congressional District. I talked about it last week, folks. Hoboken Democrat Committee endorsed him. Not a surprise there. He's got a stranglehold on that organization in Hoboken. Fine, he's the mayor. Not a surprise. But folks, what's alarming is that somehow, I'm trying to keep a straight face, folks. Okay. The idea that Hector Oseguera, aka Chiquitin, which we all know, right? You don't have to get any politics. If you know, you know, right? When you meet Hector Oseguera, all 5'2" of him, right? And David Ocampo Grajales, right? Another, progressive. Es un comunista, let's be honest. Folks, look at his Twitter feed. Okay? There's nothing progressive about a guy who's really, mira, vamos a ser sincero. Es un campesino que es un comunista. That's all he is. How this moves the needle for Ravi Bala is crazy to me. Okay? For a guy, and again, what's interesting is not just, again, another progressive in a moment that's endorsed Ravi Bala, but what's interesting about Ravi Bala is the idea that he's not a progressive. Folks, does a progressive remove a Latina from the assembly, which is what Annette Chaparro was in Hoboken during the previous districting? Okay, Hoboken used to be in the 33rd legislative district, led by State Senator Brian P. Stack. And there were moments that, let's be honest, I love Annette Chaparro, a great public servant, a great assemblywoman. Few positions she took that I wasn't a fan of, driver's licenses to illegals, a lot of other positions I wasn't a fan of. But one thing we could do, Annette Chaparro and I, is we could come together and have a civil conversation. We could agree to disagree. Right? And she was a great public servant. And how does Ravi Bala reward her hard work in the state assembly? Because he's so progressive. What does he do? He removes Annette Chaparro after redistricting, right? Because Hoboken is no longer in the 33rd legislative district. It became part of the new 32nd legislative district, which is basically the city of Hoboken, along with the Jersey City Heights and downtown Jersey City. Okay. And what does Ravi Bala do as a progressive? He takes out a Latina and inserts, wait for this progressive move. He takes that seat and gives it to his chief of staff, a white man in Hoboken, John Allen. Folks, does that sound ethical or even moral to you? And it's funny about progressives like Rob, well, not real progressives, well, progressives in general. They want to lecture you about morals and ethics, right? And now Ravi Bala is running as a Democrat in the 8th Congressional District during the primary coming up on June 8th. And you would think that, oh, other than raising money, what powerhouse endorsements is Ravi Bala getting? I can't even keep a straight face. I can't. Okay. He gets Chiquitin, Hector Oseguera, all 5'2" of him, who's never won an election, whether it was for student council in high school. Folks, this is a guy who couldn't even win an election for dog catcher. Let's be honest. All right. Another loudmouth, basically inept attorney who talks about, oh, I'm against the system. Yeah. Hey, Hector, quick question. Are you still on a planning board or a zoning board in a local municipality? Gee, how do you get on those zoning boards or planning boards? Oh, you have to talk to someone in the establishment? Okay. But you're against the system. You're against the establishment. Folks, Chiquitin is about as reliable as a screen door in the summer. Okay. How does this endorsement by Chiquitin even move the needle for Ravi Bala? Can someone explain this to me? Can someone explain to me how a guy who's never won an election, who bloviates, who's a loudmouth, who's opinionated, who's just, I don't know, the typical insufferable local, I don't know, big mouth. How does this endorsement even move the needle here? Okay. It doesn't. You know what other endorsement doesn't move the needle? David Ocampo Grajales. Okay. Un campesino. That's what he is. Un campesino. Who's never won an election. Right? Who heads the Progressive Democrats of Hudson County and sits on sort of the executive board for Progressive Democrats of New Jersey. Okay. Let me know exactly what Hector Oseguera and David Ocampo Grajales have accomplished. Other than, oh, they're big guys on Twitter. What have you accomplished, guys? Can someone explain to me what you've accomplished? Because I must have missed that memo. Okay. And I take naps every day. So maybe did I oversleep? Did I take a nap and sleep through some monumental accomplishment that either of you two campesinos are famous for? Right? Folks, Hector Oseguera, do us all a favor, bro. Stay out of politics. Okay. You're nobody important, and your endorsement doesn't move the needle. And David Ocampo Grajales, mira, hágame un favor. Mira, regresa a Colombia, okay, váyate para el campo, pelea una papa, whatever, o malanga, or whatever it is you're doing. Mira, just go back to Colombia, okay, váyate para el campo otra vez ahí y just, I don't know, entreténgate. Because you're not doing anything here productive. All right? And for two people like David and Hector, who have seen firsthand the destructive nature of socialist policies in Latin America, to walk around saying they're proud progressives. No, folks, what they are proud come memeladas. I don't say the other word because it's a family show. So how does Ravi Bala think this even moves the needle? These are nobodies in Hudson County politics, folks. Okay? If you walked around Bergen Line Avenue or Central Avenue or downtown Jersey and you ask people, hey, do me a favor, like you show them a picture and say, hey, these two campesinos, Hector and David, do you know who they are? They'll get you be like, I don't know. That's going to be probably the organic response by most people, right? But somehow they're moving the needle. Somehow their endorsements mean something. Folks, their endorsement doesn't mean blank. Okay? It doesn't. And for Ravi Bala, again, for a guy who cares more about pronouns than property taxes in Hoboken, these are the clowns you want to join up with? These are the clowns that you want around you singing your praises? Folks, David Ocampo Grajales and Hector Segura couldn't run a lemonade stand in the middle of the summer with a heat wave and everyone's dying of heat exhaustion. That's how incompetent David and Hector are. But somehow their endorsements mean something? Get basura. And when you think about basura, folks, next time you take out your garbage and you put it in a bag, you take it out of the bag and put it in the dumpster, folks, just that's what that endorsement means. From Chiquitin, again, remind me when he's won an election. Okay? Same thing with David. Remind me when these two clowns won an election. Mira, Hector, un favor. Regrésate para el campo. And David, regrésate para el campo en Colombia. Vaya a pelar unas malangas, unas papas. Porque para eso es todo que tú sirves para hacer. It's certainly not being influential in politics. That's for sure. But speaking of endorsements that make you laugh, folks, another endorsement is Jersey Councilman James Solomon. Okay? A guy who is really funny because I remember, again, here's a little history lesson about James Solomon. In the fall of 2017, when he was running against the establishment in Candace Osborne, again, Mayor Phillips, designee for Ward E in downtown, a lot of local media wasn't giving it James Solomon a lot of press. You know who was? This guy on my podcast, Talking the Hudson, who I interviewed him multiple times. And again, James and I, as academics and as political junkies, we could not disagree on more things. But I always had a healthy respect for James Solomon, even as woke and progressive as he gets. And folks, he has subscribed to some outright stupidity, whether it's defund the police, whether it's caring more about pronouns and property taxes, all that left-wing progressive woke nonsense that doesn't move the needle. And for a guy who, again, I'll give him credit. He's won not just one, but 2 elections running against the establishment, running against the county line. We'll see whether or not the county line still matters this week. We'll find out. But for a guy that prides himself on being a man of integrity, a family man, a dad, an educator, a public servant, a guy who will remind you incessantly that he is someone who values credibility, character, and dignity. Well, if that's the case, what are you doing endorsing Ravi Bala? Ravi Bala doesn't have any dignity. Ravi Bala doesn't have any character. He doesn't have any credibility. Give me a break. But you're going to sit there and endorse Ravi Bala, a guy who, again, was censured for unethical conduct by the New Jersey Supreme Court. Okay? And Rob Menendez is absolutely right to go after Robbie, because if Robbie wants to take shots at his dad, well, Robbie, you're for a game. And for you to talk about someone else's ethical misgivings, again, allegedly, there's nothing alleged about your ethical misgivings because we have them here in writing. Okay? A guy who, again, had his law license suspended in the state of New York. Okay? A guy who, let's be honest, when you think about credibility and character and someone reputable, you don't think of Ravi Bala. But James, again, this is the guy you want to latch your wagon to. James, you should know better. Okay? You should know better. Now, I get it. Your judgment isn't always great. You hire some garbage people, Laura Bustamante and other garbage people that subscribe to all this woke nonsense that are useless. Okay? I sometimes have to wonder about your judgment, James. But now this is the cherry on top. This is the piece of ice cream on top of the flan that makes everyone question, what were you thinking, James? What were you thinking? Okay? About endorsing someone like Ravi Bala, who is as ethically challenged, okay, as Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and many on the left. Okay? But this is who you want to latch your wagon to. James, I'd be careful. Because come June 8th, Rob is going to destroy Ravi Bala. And I'm going to sit there, I'm going to laugh. And when I see Ravi during the Arts and Crafts Festival in Hoboken, I'm going to be like, hey, Ravi, ¿cómo está? I'm going to be like, hey, Ravi, How are you? How's unemployment treating you? Because you're going to be unemployed soon, right? Folks, it's going to give me a lot of pleasure for a guy that's been destructive to Hoboken, that hasn't addressed flooding, that cares more about drag queen story time, okay, that cares more about, again, pronouns and property taxes, that doesn't care about the rats running around Hoboken, right? Who surrounds himself with absolute clowns. Clowns. That's what he surrounds himself with. Clowns. Okay? Like these idiots in Hoboken, Phil Cohen, Emily Jabor, Joe Quintero. These clowns. Okay? These are the people that Robbie Ball surrounds himself with. And by association, this is who James Solomon is going to associate himself with. Clowns. Clowns that are doing nothing for the city of Hoboken. You want to know who's doing stuff for the city of Hoboken? Tiffany Fisher, Mike Russo, Paul Provenzano, Jen Giattino, okay? Ruben Ramos. Those are the people doing stuff for the city of Hoboken. Not this clown and not the clowns he associates himself with. And mind you, I love going to open bars and your parties because I just walk in because I can. But folks, James Solomon should know better. And for a guy, again, good family man, good public servant, really, I don't really care for his woke policies or his progressive, philosophies. But he's a dedicated public servant. I'll give James Solomon that. But James, you're going down a notch by lowering yourself and endorsing a clown like Ravi Bala. You should know better, James. And for a guy that, again, you're so insistent about character and dignity and decorum and credibility and ethics. If that's the case, these 5 things, why would you endorse Ravi Bala? He doesn't have any of those things. He's clearly shown that. And he'll continue to show that. I'm looking forward to June 8th, folks. I'm looking forward to Rob Menendez wiping the floor with Ravi. I think all of you are too. Folks, and that's our show for this week. Again, I cannot say enough about how proud I am of Jennifer Sellitti. Okay? The public defender. Great woman, great public servant. Look forward to talking to her on the program in future weeks. Always remember, folks, again, make sure you like us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter, of course. On YouTube, subscribe. You'll be notified of all the great content brought to you by Jersey First TV. And, of course, whether it's on Spotify or SoundCloud, download it and take Jersey First TV with you anywhere at any time. I can't say enough, folks, how proud I am to be on the dream team of Garden State Media. That's right, folks. It's Jersey First TV. Brand new episodes of The Nader Narrative premiere every Thursday on YouTube, of course, Facebook Live and StreamYard, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. Of course, hosted by the amazing Elizabeth Nader, and brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap with AJ Melillo and Steve Rambollo premiere every Thursday as well on Jersey First. And of course, brand new episodes on Mondays premiere every Monday Night Live at 6 p.m. or 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Again, check your local listings for dates and times and guests, respectively. Of course, what we're doing every single week, folks, educating and advocating for residents in New Jersey every single week. And always remember, folks, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Jersey First TV. And, of course, Real Talk right here with Fernando Uribe. Of course, folks, I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, top 50 Latino as voted on by the Latino Spirit Online magazine. Certainly the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State Media, because now more than ever, folks, my level of honesty is necessary in this era of journalistic deception. And of course, I'm everyone's favorite conservative. That's right. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Folks, have a great rest of your week. Happy Easter to everybody. I'm looking forward to the short week, little vacation. Folks, enjoy the rest of March Madness. Again, enjoy Easter. Please party responsibly. And I'll see you next week here, folks, live at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Special edition of Real Talk with the Jersey City mayoral candidate, Hudson County Commissioner Bill O'Day. I have a lot to talk about in Hudson County politics, and more importantly, in Hudson County's largest city, Jersey City. You don't want to miss that. So, folks, I'll see you next week here. Again, check us out on jerseyfirst.org/TV. Great content every single day, courtesy of Jersey First. Folks, I'll see you next week here every Monday night. Look forward to it. And again, appreciate all the shares, all the live listens and watches and views. Folks, without you, the traffic would not be as great as it is every single week. So God bless you all. Love you all. Have a great rest of your Easter. I'll see you next week here on Jersey First TV. And thanks for stopping by.